Welcome everyone to Westwood Lakes. Now it's been 3 weeks since the Fishermania final, which I was lucky enough to take that lovely trophy home. So what I've decided today, if we come back with the cameras, we're going to go through rigs, tactics, mindset of how I went about approaching this big final. So let's get on the box and get stuck into it. First of all, I want to start with how I went about my little game plan and methods I wanted to fish on the day. Now, it often gets spoke about in match fishing, you have a set plan and that's what you're going to fish to. And on the day actually, when I got interviewed by Andy May and Steve Cook and the Sky crew, they said, is your game plan going to plan sort of thing? So what I want to do is I want to talk about how I want to set my game plan and how I went about fishing it with my rigs and whereabouts in my pegs. Now, if you haven't seen the practice video, a lot of it hasn't changed. The only thing that changed is sort of the across fishing, but I've got the rig here to show you that, dead simple. But if you haven't seen that video, I'll probably skip back to that and then go watch that and then come back to this one. But with the practice, it went so well. I've learned so much about trying to get in the right areas at the right times, and I'll speak in depth about that in a minute, and also what baits to fish. Now, this is so important about fishing the right baits at the right time. So obviously I'll speak about that as I go through my rigs and where I'm fishing in my peg. Now, in practice, starting off down the edge was the key to getting a nice little run. And as in the final, it was the same sort of pattern. Now, instead of starting, say, on your ground bait in micros and maggots on the hook, starting with fishery feed pellets and the little 4mm expander was miles better than just start with. Just give you that fast start you needed. I always say pellets are a nice instant bait to give you a nice fast start. So I've decided to fish them in the edge to start with. So my rig for that, just grab it, was dead simple. Now, as it was in the practice video, 13-inch Jura slip, just nice. If you hook any carp, you're going to get them in bigger F1s as well. Not too harsh to bump them smaller fish. 017 mainline. I've just got 2 back shot there, and then I've got a carp shallow and a 4x14. Now this is because I want to get the rig to the bottom as fast as I can, because the fish here at Westwood are so aggressive, they're so fast to come in your peg. I don't really want it faffing around with a 4x10, I want it straight in there, fishing straight away. So I've got one there. Now this is set about 15 inches deep, just tight against the bank where there's a little tuft that comes out. That's really important as well, because where you need to fish, you need to get that area so the fish can concentrate and not get behind your rig too much. Just plumbing up in the right area is important. Now with your shot on that one, I've just simply got a bulk of number 5 and a little number 11 just above it, so it dots it down. And that's to a 3-inch hook length above that, 013 and 16 GPM. So nice and positive rig when you were fishing with a 4mm expander, feeding fishery micros. Now the best pot in practice by miles was a small Preston cab pot. So basically all I was doing is just filling it up, making sure it's like a little dome so you don't lose any of your bait, and just gently squeeze it in. So what you allows it to do, when you put it on the water, your holes in the back of your pot, manipulate it, and then obviously I won't be able to do it because it's not in water, but it melts out your pot making no noise. Now this is one thing that was so important on the day. I never picked up on it quick. My bank runner Sam actually said I made a little bit too much noise in my pot, and he just said just calm down a bit, just keep it nice and accurate, and we just snuck it in, did it properly, and got a few more bites that way. Now the other part of my attack was a central canal, so I can have 2 areas there. I can fish shallow and I can fish on the bottom there. It's the deepest part of my peg, so this is going to be the best area to fish shallow because it can hold the biggest volume of fish, making them a lot easier to catch. So I haven't plumbed my rig up today because on the day it wasn't so prolific, but I think I had 2 fish on it, but I've got it here to show you. So same elastic again, 13-inch Jura slip. Now this one is a 4x12 F1 maggot. It was about 3.5 foot where I was going to fish shallow, fish shallow at 6 meters, so that's a nice little float. The wind wasn't this direction, it was coming like in my face, so it was nice and calm here, so I could get away with a nice light float. And then the shotting pattern was just that strung bulk. It's a bit more strung out now. I'd probably want it just because it was on the wind. I'd probably want it, say, I'm gonna move it down now, like that. So 1 inch apart, dead tight to the bottom. That was best. That was best in practice. Nice and tight apart. But now on this one, I've got a 4-inch hook length just because it's a little bit deeper. Same again, 0.13 GPM. Now, shallow rig hasn't changed from little practice one. It's just 9's holler. Now, I felt this is really important. It seems a bit soft for the summer months, but because the Westwood's so shallow and the fish do take it aggressively, I just wanted a nice soft elastic, let them glide out the peg. You've got loads of time, take your time, just net them with ease. There's no need for the heavier stuff when you're on a shallower venue. I just wanted to glide out the peg, nice and simple. A couple of back shot above my rig, 4B8 F1 shallow, and then I've got my stops down the line. I've got three number 11s there. I can manipulate where I want them. I can spread them out. I can put 2 under the float. I can put them all bulked down when I feel like the fish are really at that depth. And I've just got a 3-inch hook length, GPM 16 again with a little bait band on there just so I can slip a caster on. So that was the central canal covered. I had a few fish shallow actually on the day, and then the main, I want to say, is one of the main lines, the plan of attack, was that across line, just about 18-inch 2 foot off the far bank where that fish just swirled actually. Now this is probably probably my best line where I'm fishing on it. So I've got 0.17 main line, back shot there. I've got 4x10 F1 maggot because it's a little bit deeper, and I was fishing with a kinder potting casters in, so a little bit deeper, just a nice slim body float. Then I had just a bulk of number 11s on top of a 3-inch hook length. Because I want to be fishing, it's sort of like mud fishing that across there. You want to be nice and quick and accurate, feed your bait and get your rig in position and leave it there. Because it's so shallow and the fish feed so aggressive, I'm not trying to catch them on the drop, so I don't need that bulking one or it's strung out. I just want it nice and positive, everything bulked down, straight to where I'm fishing and fishing straight away. So they're my rigs, and my mindset of what it was is I was going to start on the edge with ground bait, with micro pellets, sorry, catch what I could there. So I had an hour down there and I think I caught 14 kilos. So what's that, like 31, 32 pounds. So I did identical really to the practice matches. And then my idea was I was loose feeding down the middle all the time, casters, just simply loose feeding a few down the middle. And the plan was to fish on the bottom really. That's what I've been catching loads on in practice, just loose feed on the bottom, feed quite positive and just wait for them fish to find your hook bait. Now, as it was on the day, there was a lot more fish than I thought here, and the fish had come shallow really quickly, so I had to adapt to that, so I dropped on my shallow rig. Now, after about 2 hours in, I feel like the fish vacated the track, so all the fish just pushed out the tracks and they've gone up to that shelf, whether it was pressure from that bank side, whether they just do that anyway, whether weather conditions, but then that across line come into its own. Now, one thing that's really important is being accurate, so feeding, hear me say I fed casters in a kinder pot. Now, it's not the conventional way, but as you've seen in the practice video, I felt that casters were the best bait to try and catch these fish. They were really hard to catch on pellets and maggots, but when you fed some casters, they were a lot easier to catch. So I thought, we had a practice match. Me and Jamie fished a little bit different, worked a few things out. Jamie started fishing them across, so we just added another little line across there. So ideally, it doesn't seem right putting casters in. It's not really a done thing, but they're the bait the fish want to eat. And the only way I really felt the best way of feeding it was in the cab pot, going across to the far bank, making sure it's nice and neat, nice and tight, and just setting your little trap like your mud fishing sort of thing. So there's 2 sides of the pots. The medium was quite good, and then we can get onto the large when there was a lot of fish there. Just create a bit more bait on the bottom, create a bit more competition, get a few more fish there. So that was my little mindset of what I wanted to see. That was the actual plan. It's how the day went. It went perfect, to be honest. It's a weird feeling. You can have matches where things don't go your way, and this day just everything went the way. When I got here to the morning, the wind was the right way. There was a lot of fish moving here. I just felt that like everything everything went in my favour that day really, but there's a few things which with the fishing I feel like did give me a little edge over a few people, like that across line, making sure I was feeding nice and tight and accurate in my cab pots. So we've gone through what I thought was going to be right, what happened on the day, my rigs and everything. We got the few baits, so hopefully we'll just catch some fish now. Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to run through each of the lines, so down the edge, down the middle and across, just to give you an insight of how I went about trying to get the most out of the areas, and a little like sort of mock run through what happened. Now, one thing I found that was really important was keeping lines topped up. So what I mean by this is catapulting down the middle. So when obviously at the start of the match, I'd look to catapult down the middle where I was fishing shallow, but I need to keep that across line fed to keep any fish interested. So how about I went about this was the big cup. Now it's only 100ml cup, so it's not much bait really. Now all I was doing was putting like 10 maggots in, say, just because that's what I was going to be fishing on the hook, and then just half filling it with casters. So big potting casters to that line just to draw some fish in. So at the start, that's what I did. I fed some bait down the middle, and then I fed my across line. So I'm just going to do that now, just to make sure I get the bait in the peg. Now I did this every 15 minutes across, just because keep the peg topped up and give myself the best chance of catching them when they were there. Last thing you want to do is just sort of neglect it, and then say if I ran out of fish, like knew I was going to run out of fish down the edge, literally because of bankside activity and with noise with the crowds and the nets coming out and the weigh-ins and stuff. So I know I've got to keep my lines topped up so I can obviously move on to when I need to, instead of getting caught out. So that's one thing that I found really important. Now, to start off with, I'm going to be down the edge. So here at Westwood, normally you just be fishing a top kit, top four, dead close to yourself where the fish come in, making it nice and easy. But with the bankside activity, I wanted to go a little bit further. So I'm going to go in the same spot as I fished in the final today. So it's about 6 meters down the bank, which if you were to come to Westwood normally on an open match would be a little bit too far. But like I said, with the bankside activity in the nets, just give myself a little space and give the fish a chance for confidence to come in. So like I said, one thing I've always trying to do is keep my pegs topped up. So before I'm going to go out, I'm literally going to just give it a little 2 pouches shallow. Now one great thing here at Westwood is the bottom is quite silty, but this allows you, when you start feeding your middle line, now I only fed that once there and I can already see a few bubbles, so it just gives me a little target area where I need to attack my peg. So you're not second guessing yourself, you still got a little area where you're going to be. So now one thing is, like I said before, really important is putting that bait in your pot. Now on the day, this post here was a little bit, I didn't take it in for judgmental, so I had to like put my bait in, really sneak it against the post, drop it in, let it all melt out, and then drag my rig in position. Now like I said before, with this sort of fishing, you'd be ideally looking to fish like a little top kit, maybe a top kit and a short four, not too far. But as we're today, we're just going to fish in the same spot, but obviously fishing was a little bit harder than normal, as you can imagine with all the bankside activity and the commotions and stuff. So literally at the start, I didn't put any big pots in down the edge. I just literally fed that size pot. Now the fish come in quite quickly on the day, and I feel like I missed a bite already before then. See, there's a line there straight away. So instead of just letting it ride and missing my chance, I'm literally gonna just push it back in position, give it like 20 seconds, and if not, I'm gonna start to feed again, because feel like the fish have moved my bait and I don't know what's there now. They might have ate it and gone. Oh, there's one. Just pulled my elastic out, but I'll look that one. So that there, the fish has got behind my rig and just caused it to foul hook itself. So this is what I mean. If I was looking to come in this venue normally, it'd be all like this sort of fishing, but because of the final, you have to fish a little bit further. Now, the thing we really learnt in practice, how good pellets were at the start. So it's really important that I've worked out the correct pot size and I wasn't second guessing myself. I just had faith in what I was doing. So I knew that the small pot was the best one for, oh, that's had it on the way in there. That, the pot size was the right size, so when I'm fishing, and I am 100% certain that I'm not feeding too much bait, I'm not feeding too little bait, and I'm just catching and feel like I know I've got the right amount of bait to catch the fish. That's one thing that's really important. If you've got the confidence in that, all of a sudden the only thing you've got to worry about is making sure that you put your bait in correctly and you put your rig in correctly, and then just sit and wait for your positive indication. If you're there second guessing yourself, thinking, oh, have I fed enough bait, have I fed, not fed enough bait at the start of a match. Now, I was quite nervous at the start of the match, so that confidence and knowing the right amount of bait, I think, helped massively. I'm not second guessing myself, I was just trying to get in the zone and get a few bites. So now, one thing that did happen, it's a nice F1. One thing that did happen on the day is the fish come in quite quickly. So 2 or 3 feeds, I had them like coming in and swirling, so they're coming to the bait straight away. So try and hold him up. Nice F1. Slip him back. So it's quite simple to start off the match. You're just going to repeat that little process again. So make sure you've got a nice little expander. Make sure your hook point's nice and exposed. Now it's important, I was making sure that my bait's gone in my pot, not putting it too tightly so I'm not taking too long to get it in. Now, one thing that's really important now, people just be like straight down the edge, just give it 20 seconds just to feed your shallow line. Keeps any fish competing there, keeps any bait in your peg. Now go against that post, drop it in. 1, 2, 3. So there's a lot of fish there today, obviously come back. A much warmer day, much more room today. Oh, that's a sign there straight away. But like I said, if you didn't have that sort of rig on, these fish are quite quick to come in your peg. There you go. So they come in your peg quite quick. They'll be on your bait straight away. They're really hungry. There's loads of mouths in here. So if you've got like a little faffy 4x10, there's no need for it in this sort of situation. Nice 4x14 is ideal. You can see it's just fishing right. Oh. I think it's a nice F1 again. Be careful of that netting. I actually had one in the final snap me on that netting. It's a nice F1 there. Nice big one. Now, they're the sort of ones we had at the start. A few big fish, and I think I had like 9 kilos to start with, so a few big F1s like that to start with. It just makes it a little dream start, to be honest. Now, you may be thinking, what did I do? When did I start? I'm trying to get my words out today. When did I decide to like come off this line and feed my different baits there? Now, what I mean by different baits, later on in the match, I'm going to look to feed ground bait and maggots. Now, I do add a few micro pellets into my ground bait, but I can then, like I said before, I can big pot it with my 100mm pot every 15 minutes. I can make sure I've got enough bait in my peg, and I can track them fish in. So what my little game plan was is literally, like I said before now, just going a little bit off topic, but I'm going to feed my shallow line. Just pouch, get it in there. Now, it's when it started to fade. So obviously I had like 9 kilo first weigh in. they went down to 4.5. Now the fish got quite tricky to catch then. There wasn't as many fish coming. Now the time in the bites has probably gone from one every like 2 or 3 minutes to one every like 6 or 7 minutes. So when that starts to happen, you know your peg's starting to slow, and in practice that was the key time to change things up. So what I mean by that is to change from micros to feeding ground bait with a few micros in and a few maggots, just so you can attract a few more fish for later in your match. So I obviously had Sam a little time, noticing the time all the time, say like every 15 minutes, make sure the edge was fed with 100 ml ground bait, just to make sure. Now it's weird, the middle of the match not many fish come in, but the last 2 hours there was an odd sign. See, there's like a swirl there, that's what I'm sort of like talking about by signs. So there's a few there today. See, there's moving my rig off position now. Just going to glide it back in position. If I don't get one, see, I can't get my rig and there's a fish there. So that's the crazy thing. Say if you're in a match conditions now and you had this on sort of one of these lakes, I'd be looking to fish a lot closer to myself on a top kit. But it's crazy how like a different match, and they were a lot more settled there. They were a lot easier to catch. Now one thing that was really good, and it worked out in practice, was a double red maggot on the hook over your micros. So I'll just try that now. That was one thing that was really crucial. It sometimes caught a few extra carp on in some areas, so let's try that now. Keep that lot pot in the water, not making any noise at all. Glide it in. See, I can get my rig in now, and there's a fish coming in straight away. Oh, missed him. Coming straight away behind me. So see him tail up there now. So all of a sudden you feel like you might miss your chance of getting him. I don't think that's in the mouth, that one. No. So, right, so just try and catch one more now. So get me expander. Just make sure my hook's nice exposed, but it's buried in the expander at the same time. And then making sure, I was always thinking, right, make sure my pot's the right volume in my pot. Before I ship out, little few casters in my pouch, make sure I've got a bit of bait going in my peg. Now we're getting a lot of fish coming in now, so we've got to be really quick to get the bait in. So it's like 1, 2, 3. All the bait's snuck out because we've got them holes. Rig straight over the top. So we're fishing. Oh, it's a bite straight away. See how quick they can be now. So this might be the issue now we've got. See, the fish is wafting my bait there. Now going off topic a little bit, what happened in here is just there's a lot of fish coming in the peg because we're a little bit further away from ourselves. Now on the day, obviously there was a lot of bankside activity. It was a little bit tighter pegging. The fishing wasn't as prolific due to the weather, so there were a lot fishing a little bit down the peg was a lot easier to catch them than fishing where we are today. So I don't want to mess around too much, missing a few bites, because it will happen here at Westwood. That's, if you're on any normal match, it's a bit like a sort of a suicide line if you fish any bit further. But obviously I wanted to show where I fished in Fish Show, what my little process was. Sorry about the chop. Oh, got one though. Must have liked the noise of the banks coming past, but so just being patient, doing them little tips and that little process of fishing. That's how I got the most out of that first hour. So what we'll do is I'll slip him back now, and we'll talk through how about when catching a few fish shallow, and obviously then move across to the cross line.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt this video. It's just a reminder to make sure you like the video, subscribe to Preston Innovations YouTube channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell to make sure you never miss another upload.
Right, now we're going to move into the middle. Now, I'm not going to fish on the bottom because I only caught 2 fish on it, so I don't feel like it's really important to do that. We covered it in the practice and I didn't really catch on it in the match, so I don't really want to speak about it. But one thing I did catch on was the shallow line. Now, one thing is really important, there was 2 little ways I caught them in spells. Now, the first way was making a lot of noise, not feeding much bait, just making a lot of noise in my rig, slapping, moving it round, and I caught a lot through that, a lot like that. And the second way was to keep it really, really still. Now, it might be tricky to do today with the wind, but I'll keep my rig still and just feed over the top. What I found, the fish just come in nice and confident and just grabbed your hook bait. So all I did on the day, literally try and find a nice big caster. There's one. Ooh. Nice big caster. Slip him on my bait band. Now, shotting pattern was really important. Now, to start off with, I'm gonna put two number 11s under the float and 1 on the top of the hook length, just to see if I can get a response that way. If I feel like I know where the fish are, I'll pull everything down if I can catch like that and make it easy for myself. But I'm going to play around with it. That's what I did on the day a lot, and you'd be surprised how many times that can make a massive difference to shallow fishing. So trust the wind to start getting up as we want to go out. But one thing that's really important, so the first off, what I did quite a lot was slap in the first instance when there was a few fish there. So I've been feeding my bait, so I feel like there was a few fish in the peg, just eating my loose feed obviously, and then, oh, wind. So I felt like if I made a lot of noise without feeding too much, the fish is coming in to intercept my bait. Now, I feel like that's the best way when the fish are in your peg. When the fish are in your peg, I feel like they like noise, they come to noise. Oh, come on. But when the fish are starting to like creep out your peg and you've caught a few of the mates and not very happy, I feel like leaving that rig still and making no noise was miles better on the day. So just the wind to start getting up now. Oh, so that was on that, I think. So I'm going to slap it over twice. See how I'm not loose feeding all the time, just trying to make a bit of noise. And when I loose feeding, my tactic was to feed like a less. So what I mean by that is feed like 10 to 15 instead of like 20 to 25, just to try and create a little bit less competition. I feel like because the fish are already there, keep slapping it over to make that noise. And then when the fish are in your peg, you feel like you can grab it. And try and catch one like that. There you go, there's one. See that? Oh, pinged off there. I think I must have caught him in the wind. And one thing, I want to make sure everything's nice and neat still. So, slap him over. I'm going to loose feed regular, but I'm going to make a lot more noise. So there's a bite straight away then. You can normally tell when the fish are in your pegs, you get a lot of signs. So like that sort of then was a sign, like a little stab at the float, as where, oh, just caught me rig then. As where, like now I'll be looking to loose feed normally, but now I'm just gonna literally slap my rig over, try and create the competition. What fish are in the peg, there's only my bait falling through, my noise and my float. There you go, see there now. So my noise and my bait, that's caused that fish, as I cast it in the water, I've got a bite off it. So as you see there, the fish just dived down, creeped down my peg, he's gone to the left. So if I wanted to now, I could still feed some bait if I needed to. And the fish is out my peg, out the way, where I need it. Just keep your top kit nice and low. Because they're quite vicious feeders here, wrapped around his fin, I feel like if you pull too hard, you can literally pull the fish off. Out the mouth there, tiny little F1. I feel like if you pull too hard, you can pull the fish off because they're so aggressive. They don't really have time to come up and nail it properly. Sometimes you nick them in the side of the face and stuff, so you want to be dead careful. So that's my little slap, and I'll try and get another one. Let's see what depth they're at. So I go out to that. Now you're not making loads of noise because you've got a nice light float on, but you're making a little bit more than you would be just keeping your rig there still. There you go. See, there's the sign straight away, so that's what I was talking about. Now, do there, get the casters, fire a few in. As they probably sink past your floats, give it a slap over again so they think, right, there's another lot coming in. And again. So this is the way that I caught a few early. Just, I'm not feeding all the time, but see there now. So like I can feed now because I got a few bits in my peg. So that was a really good spell. Say for like 4 to 5 fish I caught like this, but then as I've probably thinned the shoal out, they got a lot harder to catch. So I'll show you the next time what I did then, what I was looking for. And it's a little bit different to how I went about doing it. So nicely in the top lip, F1. So important again, try and find a nice big caster. Sliding your band a lot easier. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to literally pull everything down on top of my hook length, just because I'm going to keep the rig still. I want to keep the rig nice and still. I don't want to be moving it. So what I want to be looking to do now is slap my rig in once and just leave it. Obviously strike it some bites if I get them, and then catty over the top. So see now, I'm not going to lift my rig out and slap, I'm just going to catty over the top. And see there now, it's sat in my peg, and that's how I've caught them. Just sat there nice and still. As you see, and the fish just come up and grabbed it, and it's gone miles up my peg there. It's like all the way, it's probably like on my 3/4 line now. That's what I'm not really too fussed because it's gone out my peg. Ooh, pulled off that one. So see, that's one of the things that can happen with, say, they just swim around dead aggressive, and that might not have been hooked correctly. Definitely not going to be foul hooked because the way it hooked itself, but they have, because this feed's so aggressive, you can lose a few. So what we'll do again, make sure everything's right in the rig. Go back out. Love how the wind gets up as soon as you ship out. Push my rig over. I've moved that back shot by accident there. Yeah, just make sure everything in your rig's right. There we go, slap it over. One slap, keep it still. So you're gonna have to trap it in my knee a little bit today. Feed my bait. You get a little sign. Again, not lifting the drop in, just leaving it. Odd swirl there, so there's obviously fish in the peg. It won't take them long to start to find your hook bait. So I'm feeding like the same amount of casts again, but just less, more often, sorry. So this will help with, like, if you need to draw some fish in your peg, you're putting a lot more bait in. As where when you feel like you've got a few fish there, you can like clatter them. You're making a lot of noise, trying to trick them onto the hook, as where this is like trying to build your peg back up. Now, if the fishing's obviously better, the fish will tell you. So if you start getting loads and loads of signs on this and not catching them, try and cut your feed down. That's what I was thinking on the day, cut your feed down, try and trick them onto the hook. Now there's no point I don't see the point in lifting and dropping. There's one straight away. Well, not straight away, but we've had one. So he's gone out my peg there and I can just ship back nicely. See, well there's a little bit less fish in the peg. It's a lot easier to catch in this sort of way. Oh, missed him on that one. One thing I will say that's noticeable, the fish on the crossing down the edge line were a lot bigger stamp than these ones down the middle. I think I had a spell where I caught like 7 fish for like 6 kilo, but then I've had a way before that where I caught like 5 fish for 7 kilo, if you see what I mean. So they are a little bit smaller down the middle. That's one thing that's noticeable. So I'm just gonna have a little go again, last go on the shallow line, but this time I might mix it up. I might, if I don't feel like I'm getting any bites, leaving it hanging, I'm gonna give it a little bit of slap and try and catch one, see if that works. So slap it over, make sure everything's tight when we flick it in, and then just loose feed over it. Now one thing is really important is having your catties, like if I tried to throw that, there's no way on earth I'd be able to get that as accurate as I would with a catapult and make as much noise. So it's really important, I found, like just keep that nice and tight with your catapult. There you are, as well. See that fish just glide out the peg there now. Not sure he's in the mouth. And I can still feed my peg. Keep him shipping back. There we go. I thought he was fouled, so I put a little bit of depth on then. So take it back off again. Obviously, with the weather the way it is today, it's like a really warm wind. The sun's out, it's quite warm. It's a lot different to the day it was, so the fish are going to sit a little bit higher. Now on the day, the fish sat like 10 to 12 inches deep, as where today they've come right up to like say 8 to 6 inches deep. It's really important just to make sure like you understand, just because you caught a few certain ways, every day is different, and the fish let you know, dictate that. So if this was a final today, we'd probably have to fish a lot shallower than we would on the day of the final. But same little process and method applies, just literally trying to trick them onto the hook. Now they're so clever in this lake to catch shallow, they know when they're trying to get fish for. Just creating that competition, creating that feed. There you go. I'll end that one for shallow. Should be on. Yeah, but it's just about going for the little rhythm, that's what I was thinking. They were the two little ways I was trying to catch them. Oh. Either making a lot of noise or making next to no noise and letting my feed do the work. They were the two little ways at which we were trying to catch these little crafty F1s out. But now you may think, oh, if open match sort of thing, oh, you're taking a little bit too long to get them in, but when you're fishing for that sort of prestige, it's not too long to catch one of them. So that's shallow. Run you through what I've got, what I learned, and what I thought was my process of trying to catch these fish, and hopefully we'll try and catch a few fish across, because it's gone a little bit windy now, so it might be tricky, but we'll have a go. Right, so we're gonna have a go across now. It might be a little bit tricky just because the wind's really picked up now, but we'll have a go to try and catch some. So what I was thinking about the cross line is kinder potting casters, making sure it's nice and accurate, keeping my rig still, making sure I'm on top of that little pile of casters. So what I wanted was a big standout hook bait. That would have been miles better when I've been fishing down the middle, like 3 or 4 maggots on the hook or a big piece of worm. Now, I didn't actually put a worm on the day, but I put like 3 maggots on with miles of best bait. So didn't really matter what colour. I've got a selection of red and white, so I either put like 2 whites and a red or 2 reds and a white on. So this one I'm just going to put 2 reds and a white on, white in the middle. So nice big standout hook bait. I don't know if you can see that. Nice big standout hook bait there, moving around. Now what I'm going to do is going to literally fill my kinder pot up, so my medium kinder pot up. I want to get as many casts as I can out there, but in a nice tight area, not too much. Don't want to loose feed him. If you try to loose feed across there today, it'd just go everywhere. So nice and accurate with the pot. Now we're going to battle the wind, but it's only 30 metres, so it should be all right. But as I say that, it's blown me off a section. Now, what I'm trying to achieve here is to get my bait in first straight away, nice and accurate. Ooh. Try and jam that in there. So I don't want to do it from too much of a height, so like I just want to be about, say, I don't know, like 6 to 8 inches off the water. Take that little pot there, and because I got that bulk on, I can literally lay my rig in where I need it, let it catch up, and fishing straight away. Whoa. There we go, we're fishing straight away now. So even though it's a 4x10 little slim float, it's not pulling through just because of the depth, so it's ideal. It's quite hard to control. It wasn't this windy on the day, let me tell you. Now, one thing that was so important with this, it was like you're like your edge fishing. If you feel like there wasn't enough bait on the bottom and you feel like you missed your chance, say like there's a fish straight away. See, like you missed your chance with the fish and you didn't know what was on the bottom. The key was, I found, just to ship back and start again. Now, I think that just gives you the confidence, and it gave me the confidence. What you find is you catch a few carp over there, they go a bit mad. Give me the confidence to know I'm fishing on bait. So if a fish comes in, I know I'm confident the fish are going to eat my bait because I'm happy with what's going on with casters. I know the fish really like eating them. And I'm in a nice tight pile and I've got my bait right where I need it to be. Now, like I said before, when I caught fish on these lines, they were a much bigger stamp. As you can see now, it's not really a coincidence. The first fish was a carp, so you can imagine, I'll try and hold him up, but he's a bit lively. You can imagine these are real weight builders when you're looking for, like, I don't know what that'd be in kilos, but it's like a 3.5 pound fish, that. So they are so much key. You don't need many of them, you don't need many bites. Yes, you're going across to the far bank, but I'm absolutely nailed in the top lip, that. Like I said, you're going to the far bank, but you're coming back with a quality fish every time. As well, if you're seeing shallow, they can be up and down, moving around, it's quite scatty, but this is just nice and steady, which I feel like in a match of that sort of calibre, like a Fishing Mania where you're weighing in a lot, if you can just keep the pressure on, just ticking along nicely, just keep putting some fish in there, and that's what I kept thinking. If I can just keep putting the pressure on the others, just keep pulling away a little bit, keeping that lead and maintaining it, then I'll be alright to get over to the line. But like I said, I think I spoke to Sam Bank when I said I don't feel like it's quick enough, and then he said, well, hang on a minute mate, you're catching some quality fish and you're catching nice and steady, look around, there's not really anyone catching. So that was a nice thing to have him sat with me, and I've just tried to confirm what a little line doing. But I think the confidence is key with it. I understand the fish want to eat casters. I feel like I've got the right hook bait on, I know my rig's right, I know I'm fishing in the right area. Now you may think, well, why have you fished that far away from the bank in that depth of water? Is it because of the depth of water above you? Is it that? It's literally because that's the flattest part of the peg in that depth of water. So what I mean by this is, so over there, if I go any further now, it comes up to like all over the place. It's quite rocky bottom, but if I come back, it's probably like a whole section, so like a 30-metre section there. It's the same depth, so it's a nice flat area. It's like a big dinner table, like a snooker table for them fish to come on, be happy, graze over. But also remembering from our practice days, when we come on, let's have it straight away. Ooh. That's the problem, they do shoot out your peg here. Oh, it's popped off that one. I remember from our practice days is leaving that length of line above the float. Silty bottoms. Did have it in the match as well, where I fouled the fish across. I was like, that didn't seem right. We just had a few fish on the bounce. All of a sudden, we replumbed up. I was about an inch under depth. Put it back on, dropped it back in, and caught one straight away. So that was really important to make sure that we learned from like the practice session we actually had and put it into practice. Now I'm going to put 4 on just for a nice big standout bait here. Just try and catch one more because it's a bit battle the elements across there today. One thing about stamp of fish and the importance of depth has been so important when he's doing this type of fishing. Just drop my rig where I need it to, fight the wind. So they bite straight away. Now that's one thing they did do, they just shot along the far bank, shoot out your peg, hit the far bank like that. Can cause hook pulls, so just keep your pole nice and low. You'd think they'd be foul up, but they're not when you get them in, they're normally in the mouth. But it's gone down the peg, this one, it's fat. He's come off that one, so. So I mean, he can be quite erratic today. It's crazy what a little bit of warm weather does to him, but just going through, try and catch one more for you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a bigger pot on, feed a little bit more bait. That was a lot better on the day that was when we started doing that. Got a lot more casters in. Now one thing that's quite difficult today is because it's got like a side wind, I don't get long enough to like put my bait all in one little tight area, like next to bait tub area. That was the key, just keep your bait tight in an area and make sure you bang on top of it. So when the fish come in, oh, see there, just clouded it up. Now one thing that's really important is to look for signs. When I was fishing down the middle and down the edge early on in the match, obviously I was potting it across, so I was making sure that, there we go, making sure that my bait was going in every 15 minutes across. And one thing that was really important is to look out for signs and indications across. So like what I mean by that is like fish bow waving out the peg and the bottom stirring up and a few bubbles coming up. Like that was really important to give you the confidence that you knew when that line dies, which you knew it was going to, you had somewhere to go, which had a few fish feeding. I think that's one thing that helped me massive. But you can see that now, another carp. So you think, hang on a minute, that's what almost peas in the pods to that last one we had. I'll just hold him up, try to, a bit angry. Nice little mirror. So peas in a pod to what we were catching, you can see there, that's 6 pounds say in 2 fish. Not very difficult to catch, just had to make sure we were nice and accurate compared to, that might be 4 fish shallow compared to what we caught. But I think I'm going to give up on that across line because of the wind and we can't keep it nice and accurate, but I've got through what I wanted to show you, how I went about catching on the day, and now this, I believe, was the line that probably won me the match, kept me ticking over in the middle part of the match. Nice and simple, bit controversy kindering casters in, but it was the right bait to fish on the bottom, and the only way to feed it was nice and tight with a kinder pot. So it just shows sometimes doing a bit something out of the ordinary can pay off.